I don't know if you guys have noticed, okay? I don't know if anyone has seen this. It's a little indie game that has, I think it's coming out soon. Horus Heresy, if anyone's heard of it. A couple of YouTubers I follow have recently been talking about it a little bit. I don't know if anybody else has. But it looks kind of interesting, honestly. It looks okay. It looks pretty interesting. There's obviously been a huge marketing push recently for Horus Heresy. A lot of influencer marketing as well, which is not traditional for Games Workshop. Honestly, though, I mean, like, there's been a deluge of content for it. So there's been like a lot of Games Workshop are really rolling out the presses here, you know, rolling out the red carpet, I guess, for Horus Heresy. Karen Commissar says, "Gee, what's Horus Heresy?" Yeah, it's a very niche. It's a very niche game in the miniature wargaming scene. You might have heard of it. Not necessarily for me, because I don't know if it is for me, honestly. There has been a lot of content for Horus Heresy recently. Like, we are, what I would say, we're like in the eye of the storm here, people. Like, I can't go two steps down the stairs without somebody accosting me with a Horus Heresy miniature or a Horus Heresy starter box. There's been a lot of press around the Horus Heresy, and I found it very interesting because really Games Workshop are treating it like it's almost like it's a new edition of Warhammer 40k, right? They're giving it really the AAA star treatment. I've never seen this sort of amount of marketing buzz around it, except for maybe the announcement, the launch of 8th edition of Warhammer. It's been pretty crazy. And it's kind of funny to me because while it's getting a lot of support right now, I'm not sure like how long that will last. I'm like in two minds about it. I'm in two minds about it. I found the marketing for it very, very overwhelming, honestly. But I'm really curious, like, is there a ton of people interested in playing Horus Heresy? Like, how popular is the game Horus Heresy amongst the broader Warhammer 40k community? Because I know that there's a lot of big fans of Horus Heresy, but there's the fans that exist for Horus Heresy, the game, are the ones who have been putting up with things like Forge World prices, with resin models, with, you know, bound black books. To be honest, I mean, it's not the easiest game to get into. It's a Forge World game, which it's really difficult to get into. So obviously it's been opened up now a little bit more. There's a big starter box coming out. Things are getting moved over to plastic. Games Workshop, not Forge World, are taking over the distribution. And so now the game's being opened up, but is there a demand for it? Because right now, I suspect that a lot of people who are excited about the starter box for Horus Heresy, I think they're excited to buy Space Marines for their Warhammer 40k collection. I'm not too sure how many people are actually going to buy it just for Horus Heresy, or rather, how many people are going to buy it and then really commit to the system Horus Heresy and stick around with Horus Heresy. I'm not too sure about that, so I'd be really curious what you guys think about that. MSG Boris says, Horus Heresy is okay. I own the OG boxes, but can't see Games Workshop giving any more money to Games Workshop for a 2nd or 3rd edition rule set. Well, it's kind of funny, actually. So, Horus Heresy, 2nd edition, is coming out, and it's designed around the sort of old school paradigm. Well, it's old school now. To me, it's just Warhammer 40k, but it's the old school version of Warhammer 40k that was around from 3rd through to like 7th. And so a lot of the systems are based on legacy versions of Warhammer 40k. To be honest, to me, I recognize the systems of Horus Heresy more so than I do modern 40k. Like, I am more accustomed to them because I cut my teeth on 3rd and 4th edition Warhammer 40k. So I'm used to things like armor values, weapon, facing of vehicles, the leadership checks. What else has changed? Whippy sticks. Okay, the whippy sticks are just for fun, but things like template weapons and stuff. That's what I'm used to. Like, honestly, I mean, I've had more games in that paradigm than I have in the newer paradigm, I think. Yeah, almost like 100, almost certainly. So that actually interests me a lot. But to be honest, it's probably nostalgia more than anything else. It's probably nostalgia. Which makes me wonder, I mean, is that it? Like, is that all the Horus Heresy box is about? And let me caveat this again, because I feel like people are getting the wrong impression about my attitude towards Horus Heresy. I understand that it has lots of fans, and I understand that there's a really strong community for it right now. But it is a niche, it is a niche compared to Warhammer 40k. And the problem that I think Horus Heresy is going to have is that it's going to have to compete with Warhammer 40k. And let me tell you, I have never seen a game survive directly competing with Warhammer 40k. Like, there's no game that has ever beaten Warhammer 40k, and I don't think that Horus Heresy can either. I'm not too sure how many people will be able to afford, really, the Horus Heresy and Warhammer 40k as their main games, because both those games will demand a lot. There's a lot of models, there's a lot of painting that needs to be done, there's a lot of assembly, and there's a lot of releases. There's a lot of releases for both of them. William Penn says, given the massive size of the battles, I see it being more niche than standard. I mean, I do. I do. I think that what we're going to see is, we're going to see the Horus Heresy box sell really well, because there's lots of models inside it. People really love Space Marines, and you get a lot of Space Marines. You get a lot of Space Marines inside this box, right? Like, you get a lot of them. For a Games Workshop box, you get a lot of Space Marines. And people are going to buy them, I think, mostly for their Warhammer 40k armies, really, just to have, like, a big collection of Space Marines and buy them. And then, you know, either they'll put them together, they might paint them, maybe they won't paint them, maybe they'll, like, sit on them, maybe it'll go into a big pile of boxes, and I don't know, like, how big the Horus Heresy community is going to grow. I think it's definitely going to grow. Like, it's definitely going to grow, because I feel like the game was very I don't think it's like the community was unwelcoming to new members, but I feel like the game, as it is designed, is unwelcoming to new members, or as it was designed. Just anything Forge World is unwelcoming. Like, anything Forge World. The prices are just so absurd. The resin costs, you know, the resin models are difficult to work with. It's just hard to get new people onboarded. I think you have to be a really big fan. I'll be really curious to see what these Primarch models are going to cost, because I've heard that they are doing them in plastic. It'll be interesting. Will they cost the same amount as they cost from Forge World? I hope they do. So obviously they're more like statues on Forge World right now. If you've ever seen any of the Horus Heresy sort of Primarch models, you know, Angron and stuff like that, they're very statuesque, and they're clearly designed to be statues. It'll be interesting to see whether or not Games Workshop turn them into more playable plastic pieces whenever they move over to their system, into the plastic sprues and things like that, or whether or not they're just gonna keep them as like big statue guys. I mean, they are meant to be centerpieces, right? So it would make sense if they do keep them a little bit statuesque. I'm not a huge fan of the diorama on models. I know that Games Workshop love it, because obviously that appeals to painters, which is fine. I play other games that also have problems with big diorama pieces, and I just accept it, because the reality of the situation is that the actual gamer community within wargaming, I think, is a minority. I think more people hobby, you know, they just hobby, they build and they paint and stuff like that, which is fine. But I was talking earlier about Horus Heresy, and who is Horus Heresy for? I don't know if it's people who are moving on from 40k, honestly. I think that, for one, it's pretty good for the existing community of Horus Heresy. I know that there's been some criticisms of the rules and stuff like that, but to me, they look kind of interesting. They're the thing that's gotten me kind of most interested in it, because I kind of like all those old versions. I don't like a lot of the changes the Games Workshop made into 8th and 9th, and I do think that that is mostly nostalgia, probably. I'm not sure how great the game design actually was, but I'm totally there for it. Like, I'm totally up for trying it. And this starter box, obviously, is very appealing to a lot of people. People are really excited about this starter box. I think that it's been a very good advertisement for Horus Heresy to have a big starter box like this, because people are going to buy it for their Space Marine armies. I know I said this already, but I really suspect that a lot of seals are going to be just people looking to collect a lot of points of Space Marines. I think the size of the box, the size of the Horus Heresy box, tells you everything about the demographic that Games Workshop think are going to buy it. Because I don't think that newer members, newer hobbyists are going to buy the Horus Heresy box. I don't think this is that the new Horus Heresy box is for them. I actually think that there's a very specific demographic that Games Workshop are looking to monetize with Horus Heresy. And I think it's people who are leaving Warhammer. People who are fed up with the Warhammer design. People who have had enough of the current paradigm, because let's be honest, Warhammer 40k is a little bit of a mess. I don't think there's anyone who would disagree with that. I think even the most ardent fans of Warhammer 40k and of Games Workshop generally would agree that Warhammer 40k is probably in a pretty tough spot right now, mechanically and in terms of bloat and rule supplements and things like that. I mean, all the top level players, I think, have echoed similar things. A lot of content creators have echoed similar things. I think it's pretty much the consensus that's the case. So a lot of people have stopped playing. And I think that Games Workshop are noticing that people are moving on to different systems, and so they're presenting a system like Horus Heresy. And the thing about Horus Heresy as well is that it does appeal to people like me, people who have been around a long time. And do you know where they are right now? Do you know where people who were used to play a lot of Warhammer 20 years ago are? They are just quitting Warhammer now. Because during the height of COVID, during the height of the pandemic, Warhammer stock had never been higher. So many people got into the hobby, tons of people, and a lot of those people were people who had dropped out maybe in like their 20s or late teens, and then come back to it in their 30s and 40s. You know, like 10 years later, because suddenly everybody had all this spare time. Then Games Workshop upped their prices, and they kept raising the prices, and things were really unreasonable, and I think that a lot of people ended up bouncing off. And now everybody's, you know, the sort of lockdowns and things like that have ended. People are going back to the office. They don't have as much spare time anymore, and they're leaving. They're not playing Warhammer. They're not buying models anymore. And I think this is probably going to be reflected. I mean, it was already kind of reflected in their last annual report, but I think this year it's going to really show up. So what do you do about that? What do you do whenever, as a company, as a public company, when you've just had a huge influx of people come into the hobby, buy loads of product, and then leave again? What do you do about that? They're not sticking around. Well, you have to find a way to get that demographic back in, because evidently they've shown that they are interested in Warhammer. Like, in a perfect world, they would be playing Warhammer, or at least buying the models. You know, it doesn't really matter either way. They would be buying the product from Games Workshop in a perfect world. So what do? I think it's obvious. You sell a product designed explicitly for them. I think that Games Workshop are selling the biggest box they possibly can in order to monetize them, to get as much cash from them as possible. And then we'll see, you know, like we'll see. But at least they got to dip into the wallet for loads and loads of money with the big starter set.